Human resources employees of Reddit. What's the most what the heck complaint you've had to deal with? This was about 10 years ago. A guy in accounts pretended his wife had died. He faked her funeral, took compassionate leave, quite a lot of extra leave, as the wife was Indian and he claimed he had to go to India to sort out her estate, was given £500-ish from an office collection. Unfortunately he hadn't let his wife in on the scam, and she phoned the office looking for him one afternoon. I believe the complaint that came in from his supervisor was his wife died. Well, I just had a phone call from the afterlife. He was fired on the spot, sued for his extra leave, and is the reason we ask grieving workers for death certificates before we allow any extra PTO. Oh no, sorry, I meant my other wife. Not HR, but I used to help my HR team in organizing a summer event for families. Nothing special, just a grill party for employees with some extra events for children. This was a large company of around 300 employees. A week before the event, one guy rose up a shit heck because we chose the date when his daughter was on summer camp. You should have told him that was exactly why you chose the date. Not HR, but my company has had some serious WTF moments. Take down the pictures of World War II airplanes because our German customers might take offense. Had a phantom pooer who wrote "frick you" on the wall and crap and pooped in a newly installed toilet. It wasn't even plumbed in yet, they just shat in a waterless toilet and left it for someone else to sort out. Had a guy who got caught sleeping at work for the third time. When the shift leader gave him a talking to, the guy complained to HR that we was being victimized. During the subsequent investigation it was found via CCTV that the worker was going to his car and shooting H. This was confirmed in a positive drug test. These are just the ones that jump out at me. Not what you would expect in a multi-billion-dollar aerospace engineering company. H, multi-billion-dollar aerospace company. Yep, all adds up here. Letter complaint. The doctor called me fat. Looked up patient weight. Patient and ambiguously fat. BMI 50+. Doctor was giving results of positive test for non-alcohol related fatty liver disease and corresponding dietary advice. Wrote the patient a non-apology letter, gently hinting that choice of words was not ideal but perhaps some of the doctor's advice was good. Dear patient, the doctor misspoke. He meant to say morbidly obese. Regards. My mom, who works for the state, had to deal with an employee who was catching pigeons on work property then taking them home to BBQ them. I'm sorry, what? Have a huge list and can flesh these out more later. 1. A manager complained that a guy's accent was too thick. After speaking with the manager, who frequently uses poor tasting slang, and the heavily accented gentleman, I can honestly say the manager was the issue and the guy didn't have a thick accent. 2. Guy kissed his GF holo after finishing work. The act was reported homophobic as an act. 3. A guy kept asking other people if they're on break the same time as he to pray with him. Frequently. 4. A woman called herself B and another employee reported her for insulting an employee. Yes, the actual complaint stated she called herself bitchy. 5. Girl complained that another guy was stalking her every night. She would ask a guy to escort her to her car. It was the same guy. That one was weird. She actually used his parking space at his house to save money since he lived close to work. She then later complained that he stopped letting her do this. I can only assume due to the stalking complaint. There's a ton more added. 6. A manager reported every single one of his employees in his branch for coming in late. Turned out he told them to come to work an hour early and paid, but they came 15-30 minutes early instead and paid, so tried to write them all up etc. 7. A male customer called his boyfriend so gay when the employee told him to not be homophobic. He replied they're gay and lovers. She then asked for them to kiss to prove it. That one had a ton of people in stitches over how this woman literally lives a Futurama skit life. Might not be Futurama, but I swear I've seen a show where two people pretend to be gay and do a super awkward kiss. 2. Jimbo dude, you kissed a girl. That's so gay. One of my favorites from the other half who is in HR. So Mr. Blue and Ms. Pink work together for some time. At some point their inter-office flirting becomes too much for Ms. Pink, and she goes to HR. Apparently Mr. Blue has been sending her texts and making overtures that the married Ms. Pink does not want and needs to stop. Mr. Blue is pulled into HR, and they go over his behavior. He's going to be suspended while they determine if he'll be terminated. This is inappropriate and borders on harassment. He seems to understand, but something is off with him. He asks, is she saying she didn't want me to do this? Yes, comes the answer. This wasn't something coworkers do. You're single and don't understand the full scope of what's going on. Hold on a sec. Mr. Blue pulls out his phone and shows a text of Ms. Pink with her naked spread eagle along with a steamy note. Then another, and another. I'll send them to you for your research. HR regroups, ends the meeting and does more investigation. Turns out they'd been screwing for months. Hubby was getting suspicious and she needed an out. They both got disciplined by HR, though her marriage fell apart and she had to carry the knowledge with her that most of HR had seen her naughty bits. I don't want to take responsibility for my actions, so I'll just accuse this guy of harassment. Wish this wasn't such a common occurrence. Not HR, but a friend who owned his own company told me about having to fire a guy for picking up a prostitute in the marked company vehicle. I'm not in HR, but I know those folks pretty well. My work used to let people dress up for Halloween each year. Company is about 350 people in size. People used to have a blast. There would be parties and contests for costumes and pumpkin carving, etc. I would guess about 65-70% of the building would really get into it every year. One lady complained to HR that some of the costumes were upsetting to her because they were satanic. We're talking vampires here, folks. Freaking Dracula. Like the classic teeth, black cape, white skin template vampire we all know. That was the end of Halloween for the entire building. I hated that bee. I would distribute pentagram necklaces and encourage people to join me in worshipping the Dark One just to get her back for that nonsense. Not HR, but in my office there was a huge deal of who kept finishing the pot of coffee without starting a new one. Lem tell you, some office workers had to go for 5 minutes without coffee, which caused chaos. I'm thinking it was you. I am actually HR. I've had a few what the heck complaints. 1. Employee complained about other people's perfume affecting her allergies but wore heavy perfume herself. She said everything outside her home gave her allergies. With a doctor's note, she was allowed to work from home but was more than happy to come to company events and get smashed. Yeah, makes total sense. 2. We had an employee who was abrasive, rude, arrogant, actively tried to get people fired, and was a little too flirtatious with some women. There were several complaints about the guy. The what the heck part of it is, no matter how much documentation we collected about the guy, the executives refused to discipline him because he had been at the company for 20+ years and had a unique wealth of knowledge that would be extremely hard to replace. 3. We had an executive who scared her department so much, people were afraid to use the bathroom. If some people took maybe a minute too long in the bathroom, the supervisors grilled the person about where they were and sometimes penalized them for that. The supervisors were under so much pressure from the executive. It took a long time because people were too afraid, but finally, a few people came forward to us about the issue and we put a stop to that immediately. HR is an interesting world but can be very stressful and at times, a very lonely place to be. With a doctor's note, she was allowed to work from home but was more than happy to come to company events and get smashed. That sounds amazing. I need someone like her to teach me these things. HR here. There is always the standard stuff. I got gypped on PTO, overtime, hours, employee stole a work truck, drove to gambling town, pawned work tools in truck, gambled all money away, got drunk, crashed work truck, fell asleep at wheel. Found by cops in the morning. He complained that none of this was specifically forbidden in the handbook. We then offered him Cobra because it was cheaper than proving in a hearing that his actions fell under gross incompetence. One lady cashed her check twice by mobile deposit, then taking it to a check cashing place. Once the company asked if we could make the 401k waiting period 10 years. Had another guy take a loan against his 401k for custom motorcycle parts. Not a complaint, just wow. Had a guy complain that we took too much for child support. He had 6 orders, different lady each. MF was fertile. Pregnant EE who sat right by the break room complained about the lady microwaving salmon for lunch every day. Every freaking day. Spoiler, it was me who complained. Had a voicemail from a former employee complaining that he was fired for bulls reasons. I saved that VM for a long time. But the one that takes the cake. Flirty married jerk at work is winking at the ladies, but he's connected, so he gets a small talking to. Behavior stops. Good, right? Receptionist no calls no shows. Then we get a call from receptionist's husband. Turns out she was sleeping with flirty jerk, and doing M at work wouldn't have caused such a huge ruckus. But flirty jerk is married to the owner's sister, plus M. She is in rehab, and flirty jerk has to tell his wife that it happened in their own bed. Cheap bastard wouldn't even spring for an hotel motel. I'm not HR, but we had an issue with scented stuff in our office. Some people had a sensitivity and there was little airflow, so if someone sprayed something, they had issues. That's not the bad part. It ended up being a feud between two sections that had to be mediated by HR. On the sensitive side, there was a supervisor who looked for reasons to write up those who might be wearing something scented. She tried to write up someone for wearing a scented deodorant and someone for carrying scented lotion in their purse. They hadn't even opened it. It didn't help that the sensitive one liked to claim a migraine and go home if she even suspected someone was wearing a scent. They ended up stopping the whole issue by setting a trap and mentioning the scent of some new lotion. They all talked about how good it smelled. Strangely, the sensitive one got a migraine and the entire group was called into the office to be written up because even the supervisor could smell the non-existent lotion in her office. When called out on it, HR had to come in and put a stop to the whole issue. Note, I understand that people have sensitivity to smells. I am one of them. Old lady perfume makes me have an asthma attack, and in the beginning it was reasonable. People followed the rules. But this turned into a witch hunt on one side with someone taking advantage of it. At one point, the supervisor demanded to search people's purses and bags to make sure they weren't bringing in scented items. Didn't even have to be using them. HR did tell her that was illegal though, lol. Obligatory, not HR. But I once lightly tossed the keys to a fellow employee. It's something I often do, but this particular employee didn't like me. Later on, I was asked by my manager why I threw the keys at my coworker. Apparently my coworker told them that I got angry and huffed and chucked the keys at his chest. I was utterly flabbergasted that I was considered to be the one in the wrong. When asked the standard "what should you do next time to make sure this doesn't happen again," I didn't know what to answer. I considered answering that maybe my coworker shouldn't be such a puss, but B. Luckily my team lead stepped in and told me the right answer was not to toss the keys next time. After the meeting I busted up laughing. It became something of a running joke with my other coworkers whenever we tossed the keys to each other. Next time make a point by slowly placing the keys on the floor and backing away slowly. Might get another complaint, but would be funny. Talking to an employee about underperformance and she complains because I wasn't telling her how great she is after every text she sent. Thanks for showing up today on time and adequately doing your job that we pay you to do. Chewing too loud. Typing too loud. Had to go home because it's too cold. Hottest month on record. AC in server room next room over is dying. They can hear him. Direct quote. Apparently he was laughing from across the building. Not loudly. And they were not okay with it. Had to go home because it's too cold. Hottest month on record. AC in server room next room over is dying. Well, it's freaking hot outside. But I'm receiving the full blast of our account. The rest of the exits don't work as well as the one above me, and so I have to wear a thick sweater in the middle of a heat wave. I'm not in HR, but this is a good place to tell a related story. One of our biggest customers is a large electronics manufacturing company in France and the UK. We regularly get visits from them for meetings about something or another. At one such meeting, one of the visitors told us about Steve. Steve always vanished during lunch break and nobody knew where he went until he was discovered in the toilets one day. Another toilet user noticed a foot twitching beneath the cubicle door and called out, receiving no answer, so tried the door and obviously it was locked. Fearing the worst, he went for help. A first aider came back with him and called, no answer, so he entered the adjacent cubicle, stood on the bog and looked over the partition wall. Steve was whacking away like his life depended on it. He received a warning for it. Few weeks later it happened again. Only this time it was a female first aider who got a free show. A month later it happened again. Only this time Steve didn't plug his earphones into his smartphone properly and so was broadcasting the guttural sounds of a hardcore bumming throughout the toilet. This was Steve's third and final warning and he was fired. He claimed unfair dismissal on the grounds that nowhere in the employee handbook does it say that masturbating was forbidden on company grounds, and it was during his own time and not during work time, and ended up getting his job back. Obligatory not HR, but I work in the IT depth for a major company who are getting behind saving the oceans in a big way, and are doing their own project to help. Part of this was to change everyone's desktop background to a picture of 2 dolphins in open water. It was forced to everyone but you can change it. We got a complaint on the very first day it was deployed because someone had a phobia of dolphins and seeing this on everyone's screens was giving her severe anxiety. Laughs were had, and our build team were absolutely incredulous. They thought we were joking when we escalated it. There is currently yogurt gate scandal at my place of work. Someone's yogurt went missing from the fridge and they complained to HR. To be fair, people shouldn't be sholish enough to take other people's food. On a funny gross note about fridge theft, my husband puts partially finished sodas in the fridge at work to finish later on in his shift, and he frequently comes back to lessen the can he left there. Someone at his job is drinking already opened and partially drunk sodas. LOL. This girl I work with has a major case of resting bee face. She is actually one of the sweetest people. Someone put in a complaint about her for face threats. I thought it was a joke at first. HRD for a tech company. I was friends with one of the tech support guys. He seemed like a normal guy. We got on, went for lunch a few times. Anyway, a couple of months later, I get a complaint from one of the PAs. After spending some time and looking into the complaint, we find out that this guy had got her number from our system and started harassing the poor girl, pushing her into going out on a date with him. Non-stop harassment. This guy would talk to me about his marriage and his kids, so finding out about what he had put this girl through was very surprising. Anyway, we got rid of him. He tried to reach out to me outside work but that ship had sailed. A worker had to go visit the client's offices in a different country. The first weekend comes by, we get a call from the hotel that we booked for him charging us for the total loss of the room. It turns out that this person somehow triggered the fire alarm by putting a lighter under the smoke sensor, causing the fire sprinkler system to be activated, flooding the whole room, as well as part of the floor where his room was. He still to this day claims he didn't mean for the fire alarm to go off. Not HR, but one thing I've learned is that people will always complain about something. Our company used to have an employee Christmas party, but due to numerous incidents involving people getting too drunk and growing awareness around drinking and driving, they stopped doing so. Completely understandable. The management still wanted to do something for the employees though, so alongside our Christmas bonus, they gave us our choice of a turkey or ham, and a choice from 6 or so different kinds of liquor. Most people were pretty okay with this, but people started coming forth with complaints to HR like they didn't have the kind of booze I like. I don't like turkey or ham. The company giving booze away is disrespectful of my religious views. The next year, they just gave a gift card to a grocery chain and one to the liquor commission. Once again, people complained about the booze part, so they were given 2 grocery cards instead. Eventually they just stopped with the liquor commission cards and gave a large grocery card. People then complained that they don't like shopping at that particular chain. The company was planning on just not doing anything like this last year, but one owner made the last minute decision to do so one more time, and it's likely that the whole thing will be abolished this year. Every complaint doesn't need to cause a change. Had a very bad employee years ago. He once went to HR and his union rep to complain that I had no right to tell him what to do. He further explained that as a black man you couldn't expect him to listen to a woman. There were many amazing statements that came from him. I work as an intern in an office of 30 people. A couple days ago I received a complaint to my manager because an employee said the intern complained that the company doesn't buy enough muffins for the employees. What actually happened was I walked to the table for a muffin, didn't see any, and said AWW man I wish there were more muffins. But how does that warrant being complained about? I'm not HR. but I got fired for construed racism a little over a month ago. There's a SNL episode with John Cena giving a presentation on bananas, and I was at lunch with one of my co-workers and we were quoting the episode. I said a banana is a yellow snack that monkeys eat, quoting the episode, and a female co-worker near us was eating a banana at the time. She heard my comment, which was not directed toward her, and reported it to HR. I was fired a day later. I'm waiting to have a complaint against me. I eat my lunch at morning tea time, about 10:30 am. Always have. I keep getting complaints to me that I'm making people hungry too early with the smell of my food, usually pasta or similar. At some point it will annoy someone enough to raise the issue higher up, I reckon. Not in HR, but when I was a waitress there was this married couple that found something new to complain about every time they came in. The one that got me was, your booths are too tall, you need to lower them for us. Not only were these the same exact booths that they had sat in several dozen times previously without any issue, but also were permanently bolted to the wall, because, you know, they're booths. Not HR, but I once had to sign an agreement that if the faucet washer got stolen again I would be fired along with everyone on my shift. You know that little metal ring on kitchen faucets that screws into the spout and keeps the water flowing in a nice steady stream? Someone kept taking it. To make matters worse, we worked third shift with 5 people in the entire building, whereas the normal shift had over 300 people. But for some reason they wanted to pin this on us. We got blamed for everything there. Product missing, things not getting done, orders not going out. We didn't ship anything on our shift. In a company of 305 people, those last 5 people took all the heat for everything. To be honest, it probably was our shift who took the washer, or more specifically one guy. This one guy from Vietnam. I live in the US, who was a legal US resident for close to 20 years and spoke very little English. He would just walk out with things he needed. Tape guns, boxes of tape, box cutters, anything, like it was nothing. Not stealing. Since he used it at work, he could take it home. It was probably him taking the washer, I don't know. I quit a few days after signing the agreement. Had a morbidly obese employee who was a really good worker but did not take enough care in personal hygiene. People near his cubicle started to complain of bad body odor. That was probably the most awkward HR moment I had to deal with. When my employer was purchased out of bankruptcy by a private corporation, the new owners sent all office personnel a notice that stated all office staffers would be required to wear a business suit at all times. The HR director, a very wonderful woman, about 60 years old, promptly turned in her resignation. If she could not wear blue jeans and a blouse to work, she wasn't interested in keeping her job. The entire office staff notified the new front office that if an exception was not made for the HR lady, they would also quit. An exception was made for her. I work in IT but sit in the HR office, so I overhear everything we've had. The office is too hot, fix the AC, which we did at a cost. The office is too cold, can something be done about it? Same folks as above, they would wear scarves at their desk but they sit next to the server room basically, so I told them to frick off basically after HR asked me if I could turn it up. How come Dave is allowed his tattoo on show but mine isn't? Well Jeff, your tattoo on your forearm is of a naked lady and we have clients in the building this week. I'm sick, can I go home? We just watched you eat a Big Mac meal and a foot-long Subway, so yeah, but unpaid. They didn't go home. He won't talk to me. She won't shut up. That department is too noisy, they are distracting my team. They were the call center staff, they are on the phones all the time, unlike your accounts department they are bound to be loud. Not complaints but accommodation requests at a large cable internet provider. A call center agent requested to be allowed to use a coloring book and crayons while taking calls. Another call center agent wanted to be moved to a different location because she was in the witness protection program. About 12 requests a month for call center agents to sit on exercise balls. For safety and liability reasons and your lack of a doctor's recommendation for that. No. Another call center agent requested a bathroom break every 6 minutes. And another requested his ESA dog to come with him to work for his bipolarism. Co-workers complained that the dog stunk and wasn't groomed. Then we learned that the director of the call center was highly allergic to dogs. Before we had to come up with a decision, He up and quit mid-shift because his vacation request wasn't approved after only being employed for about 26 days. I actually think the first one is reasonable. Adult coloring books can be relaxing, keeps your hands busy, and doodling has shown to increase retention of information. Not HR, but had someone submit a complaint about me. I was doing temp work at a heating and plumbing company, answer the phones and stuff, but there was this one girl that just hated me. I guess I was too happy to be employed. Anyway, I go in one day and the owner pulls me into the office. I have to get a drug test done because I'm too energetic, and I blow my nose frequently. I am a morning person, and I have allergies. The results come back negative. The owner apologizes, and I quit on the spot. You are the 1000th comment. Not HR, but we had a flame going once about someone taking coupons from company cereals which as a result were falling out of the hole in the packaging. When I was a shift manager at a convenience store, I had a cashier just decide to take off her shoes and socks because she was uncomfortable. This isn't a WTF moment. The WTF moment was when I informed my boss and he said not to worry about it. I left that job 2 months later and she was still doing the same thing. Maybe it's just me, but if I walked into a store and saw that, I'd walk right back out. After a promotion at a previous job, I was given my first employee to manage. After the first day of training, she complained that it was bulls that she agreed to take this job only to find out there was no immediate benefits regarding maternity leave. Turns out she was 6+ months pregnant and was only looking for a job that would pay maternity leave. My boss told her not to bother coming back for training the next day. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.